Hey guys, Derek here with another video. So I talked about last year wanting to do videos on obscure developers and just kind of like highlight some of those developers for people that are looking for like obscure games and just kind of like off the beaten path fun games and stuff. So I'd been collecting some games and I was going to actually talk about them this weekend. And yet again, Reggie and Metal Jesus Rock beat me to the punch with one of them. I'd already shown the one that they showed in a pickups video, but I still wanted to talk about him, and I wanted to like let you guys know about him before other people found out about him. But anyways, they only talked about one of them, and yeah. Anyways, so the developer is RFX Interactive. They like the game I wanted to talk about was Lady Sia, and they talked about it being like published and developed by TDK, which it was published by TDK, but it was developed by RFX Interactive, and like RFX Interactive. So let me back up. A lot of my collecting is done based on publishers and developers. Like I'll find a game that I really like, and a developer has like a certain art style that they stick with. I'll end up like liking that or like gameplay style, and then like I'll end up trying to pick up a lot of games in their catalog. So the RFX Interactive catalog only has like 9 games in it, and yeah, so I ended up picking them up based off of playing Lady Sia. So the first game I'm going to talk about here. So there's like 6 Game Boy Color games and 3 Game Boy Advance games. So I'm going to try to do them based on when they were developed, at least as far as I can tell, because there's not a lot of information. But the first game up is going to be Inspector Gadget Operation Mad Cactus. This game, I believe, was the first one that they had published and developed. But this game it's kind of interesting. So let's see if you can see it on the game case here. So this art style, I'll probably just show some video too, but the art style in this game kind of started setting the tone for the RFX interactive games. Like they all look hand drawn. They all have like a very nice crisp color to them. It's got a lot of personality and stuff. And then the music is one thing that you'll notice across all these RFX interactive games. Like it's kind of monotonous and repetitive, but it's definitely very distinct, and the distinct art style along with the distinct music is kind of what drew me towards them. But in this, like all of their games except for one are action platformer games, which makes them perfect for Game Boy games. And none of them are like very long, maybe like 2 or 3 hours at the most. And all of them are interesting, I'll say, in their own way. Some are, well, a few of them are a lot better than most of them, but they're all pretty fun to play at least. So in Inspector Gadget, you can play as Inspector Gadget, Brain, or Penny, and kind of like in Mario Brothers 2, or Doki Doki Panic, whatever you know it by. They all have their own like abilities, and like Brain can double jump, and Inspector Gadget has all kinds of gadgets that he can use, and then Penny, I don't really know what Penny does, but Penny, I'm assuming, has some cool power. But anyways, like the like in all of their games, basically you try to traverse your way through levels. You pick up things along the way, and then you make your way to an exit, and then you just kind of like rinse and repeat that. But none of their games, like no two of their games, feel like the exact same game. But you can definitely tell they're basically the exact same game. It's kind of weird, but it's interesting. So the next game up was a game that released on the N64. A few of these games didn't release, like the Game Boy games that I'm going to show never released in the US. So I bought them from Europe because apparently they released there. But Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and I think the Game Boy Advance are region free, so you can play them. But the game's going to be Tonic Trouble, and this is probably one of the worst RFX interactive games. Graphically, like it looks pretty okay, I guess. It's got like the Ed, I think is the guy's name. He kind of blends in with the background, and he's kind of like a floating body, kind of like Vector Man. So you kind of can't really make out a distinct look to his body. And then, like I said, it blends in with the background. And then just kind of trying to figure out what to do is it's kind of hard. So I think you're gonna have to look at a manual, or try and find like a video. Like I think there's only 1 or 2 videos on YouTube, and one of them was only 2 minutes long, which I actually surprisingly taught me enough to play the game. But this game is it's pretty hard. It's a platformer like I was talking about, and then In this one, you collect stuff and then try to make your way to the end of the level, like basically to the exit, like I talked about in Inspector Gadget. And yeah, like I said, it's probably one of their worst games, but it's like I said, like this developer, its art style and its music, all of their games are distinct looking, and I just wanted to collect the entire catalog. So the next game up is going to be basically along the same lines as Tonic Trouble. It's not one of their best games, but it's going to be Toonsylvania. And in this game, you play as Igor, and you collect a bunch of crap, and you try to make your way to the exit on each level. So this game, like, you can at least pick out Igor as you're traversing through the level, but it's just kind of a boring game. Like the music in this one isn't really that interesting, and then the art style, while it does look good, isn't really as memorable as a lot of their other games. But yeah, like this one, like I'd say this is probably their second weakest, and Tonic Trouble is probably the weakest game in their catalog, but still cool to have. And I think this one released in the US, so should be good there. The next game up is probably the best Game Boy Color game from RFX Interactive, and that's going to be Merlin. And as you can, let's see if I can get it to focus. Come on. There we go. And as you can see by the fact that I only have it cartridge only, this one was one of the harder ones to find, at least was able to find a manual, but one of the harder ones to find a complete in box, and this one only released in Europe, so it made it kind of doubly hard for me to find a copy of it. But like I said, this one's probably their best Game Boy Color entry. So this one, it plays a lot like a shooter, basically. Like you've got levels where you're kind of just walking around the level and shooting at the enemies and stuff. And then like in any shooter, like you can pick up power-ups and stuff. So like the more enemies that you kill without getting hit, your weapon gets powered up basically, and then it just becomes like a bigger shot, and then for like one shot it becomes a homing shot, and then like you've got this one where it's like you shoot two projectiles at like a 45-degree angle, and that just becomes more powerful. And then like one of them you shoot a wave, and that becomes like bigger as you get more powered up. And then you've got other levels where it's like a side-scrolling shooter, and it's pretty cool. Graphically, this one looks really good, and the only like really crappy part about this game, I guess, is jumping. Like if you're not pressing a direction button when you jump, you just jump straight up, and like when you're jumping straight up, you can't change directions or anything. So if an enemy's coming at you and you just happen to hit the jump button, you're probably just gonna have to get hit. And then with all of the RFX Interactive games except for one of them, if you press up, the camera pans up, and if you press down, the camera pans down. So basically, the camera is always looking up or down. In Merlin, it's really more pronounced because you will be walking and trying to shoot enemies above you, and then the camera won't be showing just below your feet, and then you'll walk right into a pit. And that just kind of sucks, especially when you're like fully powered up. Anyways, like I said, this is probably the best Game Boy Color game. So if you ever run across a copy of it, I definitely suggest picking that one up. Alright, the next game up is probably the most interesting of all the RFX Interactive games. And yeah, it's just like a mishmash of ideas, which is really strange. But it's going to be called Dinosaur Us. It's kind of a play on Dinosaur Us. If you couldn't tell, come on. Come on. See if we can get it. There we go. So in this game, you start off as an iguanodon, and yeah, like you try to basically platform your way through the first level. Like you can pick up all these elemental like abilities and stuff, and then you're just trying to navigate your way through this map and get to different sections of the world. In this game, like you can end up grabbing different dinosaurs, and each dinosaur has the ability to get to different places within the game map. And yeah, so this game, the interesting part about this game is that it's an RPG mixed with the platforming game. So it's got like Pokemon-esque random turn-based battles where you can use the elemental abilities that you pick up throughout the level and attack the enemies. And then you've also got just like attack with your claws, attack with your tail, and then like other random attacks like you'd find in a Pokemon game. And yeah, like I said, this game is just pretty interesting. The sprites in this game are massive, which is kind of weird given that all their other games have pretty proportionate looking characters. And then the art style, it looks pretty good, I guess, but it isn't as distinct as some of the other games. It's just, I guess, like a really cool game all around. But this is another one that was fairly difficult to come across for me living in the States. And this one, did I say it released in Europe only? It didn't release in the US, so you have to import a copy of this game. All right, and then the last Game Boy Color game that I have here is also the only non-platformer RFX interactive game, and that's going to be Ants Racing. And this is based off of the movie Ants. Come on, camera, you were doing well. Here we go. There we go. So this game, if you ever played RC Pro-Am on the NES, or maybe even like Off-Road, this game is basically like a Game Boy clone of that. And so like you get in races with 3 other characters, and then you just drive around the track and you try to win. So you've got like a boost button, and like if you run into other players on the track, or if you run into the walls and stuff, you'll take damage, and like if you take too much damage, then your car breaks down basically, and then you kind of take like a time penalty. But like you've got gum and stuff on the track that if you hit, you'll slow down, and then there's like oil slicks that if you hit, you won't be able to control your car, so you'll probably likely slam into the side of a wall, or you'll slam into one of the other characters. And then there's some other stuff on the tracks, but this is surprisingly a fun game. Like it's not like the greatest game, but it's kind of an interesting one. All right, moving into the Game Boy Advance games. The first game up is going to be the one that got me into all the RFX interactive games, and it's one that I was at least able to turn one other person onto before Metal Jesus Rocks and Reggie did. But it's going to be Lady Sia, and of all the RFX interactive games, this one is probably my favorite one. There we go. I think that's just the secret to getting this thing to focus. So like I talked about in the Pickets video, like I think this game is probably going to be the most equivalent to like a Pop Full Mail type game on the Game Boy Advance. And it's like an action platformer like I talked about then. And then there's lots of stuff around the level to collect. And there's people that you can save. And there's just kind of a lot of exploring to do in each level. And like the art style in this game is probably my favorite of all of them, because I just like the fantasy type environment, and then the color palette in this game looks really nice, and then the characters, like all of the character designs I think are really good. And yeah, the music is probably my favorite in this game. So yeah, easily my favorite. So if you can find a copy of it, definitely pick it up, because I think this will probably turn into a sought after game now for the Game Boy Advance, and right now it's really cheap. Alright, the next game up, you could tell that RFX Interactive is getting pretty comfortable with how they were developing games, basically because they'd had like 7 attempts up to this point of developing the same game. But it was called Dyne Autopia, the Timestone Pirates, and as a kid I was a huge Dyne Autopia fan. I was a huge fan of dinosaurs, so a world where people and dinosaurs like live together, and then like dinosaurs wore armor and then like build kingdoms and stuff. I was all about it, and I used to like read the books and then draw like topographical maps of what I thought the world looked like and stuff. I was obsessed with Dyne Autopia as a kid. Anyways, like this game graphically, it was like leaps and bounds ahead of Lady Sia. Like the sprites in the backgrounds looked really good. The music was pretty good. The first level in this game is pretty tough to get through. Not tough as in hard, it's just tough as in trying to make yourself finish it. But like once you get through the first level, the game really gets good. So if you decide to play this game, definitely try to play past the first level. But you can find copies of this game, at least loose for sure, for maybe like $5 at the most. Like this is a really cheap game, but it's a really good game too. So don't sleep on it. And then the last RFX interactive game I have here is definitely their magnum opus, and it was from a series that I really liked on the N64. It was basically the first-person shooter game that I'd ever played that actually was like a 3D first-person shooter game that wasn't like Doom, where it was just really 2D based. But it's Tarak Evolution, and RFX Interactive developed the Game Boy advanced version of the game. And I don't know who developed all the console versions, but it's not like the console version games at all. And like I said, it's the RFX Interactive Magnum Opus. This game is basically Contra with Contra and Metal Slug, I guess, with like more realistic proportions and like Turok. Like in this game, they nailed the combat, they nailed the graphical look of the game. Like this is easily the best looking RFX interactive game. This is easily like the best RFX interactive game, playing wise. Period. And like you've got probably like 9 weapons to choose from, and then like selecting weapons on the fly is very easy. The enemies are all really good looking, and there's a lot of variety. The levels are all like varied and stuff, and then the game just plays very good. So definitely pick this one up, and pick Lady Sia up, and Dinosaur Us, and what was the other one that I said? I know there was at least one more of those. Merlin, pick that one up. So yeah, these are RFX Interactive games. I really like them as a publisher, or not a publisher, as a developer. And like I said, somewhat of an obscure developer. Like they kind of fell off, I think, after the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance, and even during the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance time, I don't think they really got a lot of attention. But yeah, like I guess that's what the point of collecting is now, to go back and kind of rediscover this stuff. And then the point of YouTube, I imagine, is to help bring to attention a lot of these types of games to fellow collectors and stuff. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. I kind of want to start doing more on obscure developers and obscure games. And yeah, anyways, hope you guys had a great week, and I hope you have a great weekend coming up. Take it easy. Later.